Good evening. This is Greg Ferris, the President of the Forney ISD Board of Trustees. I hereby call this Forney ISD Board of Trustees meeting to order. It is now 6:02 p.m. and I certify that we have a quorum present. This meeting has been posted in the time and manner required by law. At this time, we're going to take item number 18 out of order, and the board will convene into closed session. It is now 6:03 p.m., and we will now convene into closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074. No voting will take place in closed session. Any action the board wishes to take will result in discussions closed in that closed session, and the vote will happen out here when we reconvene into open session. We're now dismissed. Okay. Well, good evening. It's now time we'll reconvene this regular board meeting. Our pianist tonight has been Mr. Thomas Howard. Mr. Howard is a senior at North Forney High School. Thank you, Mr. Howard, for the entertainment this evening. We appreciate you. Leading our invocation this evening, we're privileged to have Dr. Jimmy Pritchard. He's been a part of our Forney family since 1994. He is the senior pastor at First Baptist Church in Forney. He earned his bachelor's degree from Sam Houston State University in Huntsville. His master's and doctorate were both earned from Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary in Fort Worth. In addition, he has served also as the president of the Southern Baptist of Texas Convention. He served as the trustee of the International Mission Board and Criswell College. He is the author of the book, Calling Down the Fire. Dr. Pritchard is married to Jeanette, and they have 3 children, and who've all graduated from Forney ISD, and they have 7 grandchildren. First Baptist Church is very active in the community and schools. This year they have adopted 2 elementary schools, both RHEA and Smith Elementaries. They offer additional support and services to the students and staff. Many of our kindergarten through 6th grade students participate in the upward sports programs offered by First Baptist. The flag football, basketball, and cheer programs promote character and self-esteem to all who participate. We are thankful to have First Baptist Forney as a member of our Forney family. Would you all rise as he leads us in prayer?
Before I pray, you give a preacher a pulpit, you get what you get. I do want to say a word of appreciation to the board members for their time, energy, and leadership. We appreciate you very much. To our administration and all of you, we thank you for the direction that the district is headed. I visit a lot in new residents' homes, and it is quite astounding how many of them will say the reason they've come to Forney is because of our schools. And so thank you. I'll pray for you tonight, but this is not the only time that you're getting prayed for. So let's pray. Father in heaven, we gather here to thank you for the life that you offer us through Jesus Christ. We thank you for the gift of life that you've given to us. And so we pray specifically this evening for our school district. We lift up to you our teachers, administrators, students especially, their parents and families. And then, Lord, for our school board, as they meet tonight, we pray that you would grant wisdom, and every decision that is made will be made in light of the standards that you've given us in your word. So we thank you for our community. We thank you for the quality of life that you offer to us. And so, Lord, we thank you for our school district. Bless not only this evening, but the time of this school year. And may you give us great wisdom as we look to the future. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. May God bless
Thank you.
As you. Okay.
Moving on to item B will be our pledges. Tonight we have for our secondary student of the month, Dr. Jonathan Campbell will be introducing them. If you'd like to come forward, and following that, then we'll have Miss Jenny Harstrom, who will introduce our elementary student of the month.
Thank you, board, if it pleases you. I'd like to introduce Hope Shiner. Where are you? Oh, you're standing behind me. Hope is a senior at Forney High School. Amazing student, and you're going to hear a little bit more about that from her. But she is definitely somebody that we like to see at Forney High School. She always comes in with a smile on her face. She's ready to go to work, and she knows what she's about to go do next. So without further ado, Hope Shiner.
Hi, y'all. I'm going to make a little speech. Hope you don't mind. I was just wanting to say that I'm so grateful to be receiving recognition tonight, and I know Forney ISD is filled with an abundance of talented and intelligent students, so this really does mean the world to me. In my senior year, I can finally see my hard work paying off, and I was just accepted to the University of Texas, which is my dream school. And I couldn't have done it without my inspiring teachers I've had. They really don't receive enough recognition over the years. Because whenever I go to school and I see someone who's passionate about their job and passionate about what they're teaching, it inspires me to work harder and learn more. So I just want to say thank you. And a big thank you to Miss Marcotte, who's put up with me since 9th grade and also believed in me and pushed me in HOSA to help out my community, which I know will have a lasting effect on me as I go into the medical field and pursue being a physician's assistant, which I hope will later benefit the community. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm here to introduce Miss Addison Doyle. She is an amazing student and a Lewis Leopard. She is a leader both inside and outside of the classroom. At school, Addison exemplifies excellence in both academics and attitude. She is an A honor roll student, participates in advanced academics, and has excellent attendance. She is a member of the Lewis Elementary Leopard Patrol. The Leopard Patrol assists with greeting and helping students out of the cars and into or out of the school safely. The members also help younger students who need assistance in finding their classrooms or teachers. She is also an active member of the Lewis Honor Choir and enjoys singing and performing. Outside of school, Addison is a vital and active member of the Glory Fast Pitch softball team. She has played fast pitch for over 6 years. She serves as a valuable member on her team where she plays all positions, including pitcher, which is her favorite. In addition, she is a member of Lake Point Church where she participates in peer student program. Addison is the oldest child of Isaac and Nicole Doyle. She has a 9-year-old sister named Kara and a 3-year-old brother named Maddox. She also has a dog named Boomer. Addison is a natural teacher. She helps her younger sister with homework and her brother with learning his alphabet and introducing him to reading. She has even taught Boomer how to catch toys in the air. Addison's teachers can't say enough good things about her. Mrs. Dotson, her homeroom and ELAR teacher, says Addison is a hard worker and leads in class by example. Ms. Hobbs, her social studies teacher, says Addison spends quality time producing top-notch schoolwork. Ms. Neggs, her science teacher, says Addison consistently takes pride in her work. Ms. Taft, her math teacher, says Addison regularly demonstrates quiet leadership, quality work, and an example for others to follow. We are proud to have Addison as a member of the John M. Lewis Elementary family.
If you'd rise, Ms. Shiner, for start us on our pledges.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Families like to come join us up here. Families are over here. Thank you all for being here tonight, principals, for your selections, and that was definitely some of Forney's finest. So families and students, we appreciate all that you do and for your support tonight. We'll move on then to recognition and acceptance of donations. Item 4, donation tonight by Johnson Elementary PTO. At this time, we'll turn this presentation over to Ms. Nancy McElroy, principal of Johnson Elementary.
Board, we just want to take a little time tonight to recognize our Johnson Elementary PTO. With me tonight is Shannon Hale. Shannon has been on our PTO board, we were just talking, 10 years. She has a junior at Forney High School, so Shannon started with us a long time ago when her junior was first grader, and she's been with us for quite some time. Has spent a lot of time and spent a lot of hours helping children at Johnson Elementary. At Johnson Elementary, we have a really good partnership with our PTO, and we do a lot of our fundraising jointly, and we work on that together. And we had a very successful fundraiser this year because of all the support we get from our PTO, and because of that hard work, they were able to make a donation to us for over $10,000 this year. Just for you, so that you know some of the things we get to do with those funds, all of our field trips are paid for through PTO fundraising and donations. So that's one of the things that benefits every child on our campus, and we're really proud of that. This week we've got book fair going on at our campus, and every child on our campus will receive a book from the book fair because of our PTO fundraising, which is incredible. So we're really proud of that as well. You can't see it right now because of the book fair, but we've got some beautiful new innovative furniture in our library that is just gorgeous, and once book fair is over, we'll get it back out there. But that's all due to the fundraising that we've done with PTO as well. We've got new makerspace tables, and it's just, these are things that our PTO has donated to us that will continue on for many, many years to come. So we're very grateful to our PTO, and just want to thank them and accept that donation.
Well, thank you very much for presenting, Board. You've heard the presentation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Ms. Johnson? Second. Ms. Green? Any other questions from the board? I hear none. Do I have a vote? All say in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I hear none. Thank you. Congratulations. Appreciate your work and your support. Moving on then to item number 5, student recognition here. Our state qualifiers for Texas State Special Olympics, and our presenter tonight is Jennifer Gillespie, our vision teacher.
Come on up, JD. Tonight we want to recognize JD Bowden. He's a student at Warren Middle School. He competed in the area Special Olympics meet for bocce ball on September 29th. He played 2 games and came in first place. His twin sister Olivia played on the unified team and came in second place at the area meet. JD qualified for the state bocce ball meet October 19th and 20th at A&M College Station. However, due to all the rain, that had to be canceled. He's looking forward to going back next fall. Earlier in the spring, JD went to the state Special Olympics meet for track and field. He received first in the 25-meter walk and second in the 50-meter walk and first in the tennis ball throw. JD, we're proud of your determination, and we look forward to seeing what you do in the spring.
Scott, I think you wanted everybody in the back.
No.
Next is item number 6, public forum, and at this time, no one has signed in to address the board, so we'll move on to reports, starting with item number 7, reports tonight. The next 5 items will be reported, and no action will be required. First will be our monthly financial report. Mr. John Chase, Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. The report, financial report for September 30 includes recognition of $8.8 million, $8.9 million of revenue for the month, $8.7 million of expenditures. Now, the year-to-date revenue recognized is just over 11.1, or right at 11.1 million, or 13% of the amount estimated. Total expenditures was 20.7 million, or 24% of the amount estimated. And for comparative purposes, the prior year we were at 13% on our revenue and 23% on our expenditures. So we're tracking along as to be expected. Moving on to debt service, we had $22,000 in revenue collected for the month. We paid a paying agent $500 in expenditures for the month. The year-to-date revenue recognized was $146,000, or 1% of the amount estimated. And year-to-date expenditures was $13.4 million, or 72% of the amount estimated. And both of those are pretty much in line with where we were at the same point in time last year as well. And finally, the cash investment on hand at the end of September was $41.9 million. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
No questions, and we'll move on to item B, quarterly investment report.
Again, our investment report for the quarter ended September 30. We had $29.4 million of cash investments on hand. That money was on deposit at Citibank, or one of 3 of our investment pools that had been prior approved by the school board. The interest rate that we earned on these investments ranged between 1% and 2.2%, and the amount of interest income for the quarter was $189,000. As you know, the interest rates are on the rise, or our interest income is on the rise. It's good when you have money to invest, but not so good when you want to borrow money. But that's the investment report, and be happy to.
That interest does look better than it did a while back, doesn't it?
Yes, sir. I think we had about 20 or 30,000 total about 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So it's when the interest rates are 0.1, it's not much.
Any questions about the investment report, ma'am? Okay, moving on then to item C, first quarter tax collection.
The tax collection report is ending September 30. As you know, our levy for the year is 61.9 million. It's a little over it's over 13% higher than it was the prior year, and that's a direct reflection on the amount of fast growth that we're experiencing in the district at this point. We had no current year tax collections. We don't collect any taxes for the current tax. The levy doesn't actually go into effect until October 1st, and so there is no current collections for taxes. But the delinquent taxes, we had 121,000, or 0.4%, I guess, of the amount if you express that in the form of a current year tax levy. The prior year, or the 5-year average, I guess, is 254,000, or about 0.5% of the total levy. So we're slightly behind where we had been in prior years, but not too bad, nothing to get worried about. And then finally, we have a large positive adjustment again this year at $235,000. If you look over the last 4 years in that column, you've seen some pretty substantial adjustments to our tax levy. Those are primarily related to ag rollback taxes, and we've discussed that at length in prior board meetings, so I don't think we need to spend a whole lot of time on that, but it is related to ag rollback. More land comes out of ag, we get taxes on that property. So if you have any questions on the tax report, I'd be happy to answer them.
You've heard the tax report from Mr. Chase. Any questions from the board? And I hear none. Thank you, Mr. Chase. We'll move on to item D, the 2019-2020 Attendance Zone Modifications Report. We'll have 2 presenters tonight. First, Mrs. Kim Morzak, Chief Information, Innovative and Technology Services, and Mr. Rick Gear, Chief of Human Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ferris, Board. We're actually going to bring several people in tonight to kind of talk to you, so I'm going to introduce people as they come up, but we're actually going to start with just a quick update on where we are right now with the Ray and Smith conversions. As you know, those are turning into intermediates next school year. So I'm going to invite Mr. Von Gallagher up to kind of walk you through where we are on those two projects.
Just a quick rundown on where things are. We've been making good progress. The week of fall break at Smith and Ray, we were really dampened by the weather a little bit. We were planning quite a few of the steel erection processes to take place while the kids were out of school, but we were able to get the critical part that we needed to done while they were out. So that's what's taking place right now. Right here. Both schools are at about the same spot. What's taking place this week, the exterior framing on the first and second floor, interior framing on the first floor, and then the sprinkler piping is 90% on the first floor. The trades are doing what they need to do, and things are going well. Next week, you'll see the damp proofing on the outside as well as the roofing, which will get us in the dry. Once we get in the dry, that really reduces our exposure of things going on and helps us make our luck from there. Our big critical step is the week that you're out for Thanksgiving. At that point in time, the campuses have been phenomenal in accommodating us on this. We are having to put some temporary walls inside so we can make the structural tie-ins to that. But the way that the structure is required to tie into where the library is, we're having to do that. And I can't thank them enough for being accommodating to help us out with that. We're going to do that when they're gone, get that done, then they'll have their library set back up when they get back to school. It'll just be a little smaller than it was before, and that'll let us keep things going and get that done that much quicker. Any questions on those two facilities? They're basically at the same place. We had initially had a plan to kind of 2 weeks behind and 2 weeks so we could let the trades, but we have a couple of job superintendents that are more interested in not being last, so that's not a bad thing either, so things are going well. These are the pictures that you can see, kind of the aerial photos, let you see where the structural steel is as well as that exterior framing going up on the outside. You can see the second floors are poured. And those items, Ray, basically the same thing I just went over. And then those are pictures of it, so you can see how things are progressing there. The weather's been the issue, but again, we're getting closer and closer to that not being a problem as we're getting in the dry, so it's not going to be an issue in the end at all. On the FLA, this week we'll complete the restroom remodel. We'll begin to paint the exterior of the facility, and then that'll wrap up the phase 2 of that process. The last thing we've got to do is the canopy. Again, that's the long lead time item. There's only a couple of groups that make those. We're trying to push as fast as we can. We'd like to get it done. The minute it shows up, we'll get it done. At this point, it looks like it'll probably be closer to the end of the year, Christmas break, which wouldn't work out bad. I just wish we could get it done sooner, but that's kind of where they were. The big push was over the fall break again. Every trade in there did a great job of getting things done when they came back. All the classrooms were back where they were. Everything was cleaned up. All the work was confined for the most part to those restroom facilities, so we weren't really bothering the activities of the campus or anything else, so it's been great. We had some answers we needed along the way. The guys at Huckabee have been great about, hey, we ran into this, we need to do this, what do you think? And they give us a quick answer, and that lets everything happen quick, so it's been a great team. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. So as you know, because Ray and Smith, these are just some final pictures of FLA showing you that bathroom expansion, I think, in the entryway, the secondary entryway. As you know, by changing the feeder pattern at Ray and Smith to intermediates, that has caused a rezone modification plan. We'll kind of take you back to a little bit what we talked about at the board workshop last week. But we're going to really kind of focus on 3 things. And you will notice on all these slides, it's a watermark that says draft across it. This is a plan that we're presenting to you, getting your feedback so that we can continue to move forward. But right now, everything we're talking about is in draft form. So this is going to be in 3 parts: our future expansions, our attendance zone modification plan, and then potential transfer policy. So if you'll recall, the green line at the bottom is where we kind of started this. When we were planning Ray and Smith, that was our growth projections. Things have boomed a little faster than anyone could have imagined. So last year we were working with new numbers, and that was that blue growth line. And we now have our new numbers in, and we're now on that yellow growth line. We're growing incredibly fast, faster than anyone could have predicted. So we know that we're going to have to continue to look at how we're going to manage that growth as more and more students continue to join our Forney family. So we're going to start with just a quick video kind of talking about where we are in the planning process. So.
This is Justin Terry again, and today we'd like to share a little bit of information about the upcoming intermediate conversion, as well as how we're continuing to manage the growth in Forney ISD. As you recall, our innovation and design team came together in 2017 and made a recommendation to adopt a new educational model in which we would convert Smith and RHEA into intermediate campuses. The Forney Learning Academy was also selected at that time to be renovated into an early childhood center. All of these additions gave us room for over 1,200 students at these three campuses. Our growth has actually been faster than the demographers predicted over the past year in Forney ISD. And Forney ISD is on pace to be one of the fastest growing communities in Texas, with a growth of almost 10% in the last year alone. This means we will welcome almost 1,000 new students into our Forney family. Last year, demographers predicted that we would hit 10,800 students by the end of October 2018. But we actually exceeded that mark on the third day of school this year. And as of October, student enrollment has exceeded over 11,150 students. To be good stewards of our taxpayer dollars here in Forney ISD, we actually did a cost analysis of building a new school versus renovating our existing campuses. The estimated cost of building a new elementary, where the capacity is 700 students, is approximately $34,000 per student. In comparison, the cost to add 1,200 additional seats to RHEA, Smith, and the Forney Learning Academy was only $16,000 per student. This was actually a 50% savings for the school district. Over the next 2 months, we'll be modifying our attendance zones to align with the conversion to a new intermediate structure, while also balancing the populations at our existing elementary schools. Since your voice is an important part of the attendance zone modification process, we are hosting informational nights to share draft modification plans beginning on Thursday, November 8th at 7 p.m. in the North Forney High School auditorium, and on Monday, November 12th at 7 p.m. in the Forney High School auditorium. We invite you to come and learn about the process and provide your feedback on a draft as we work together to create a great plan for our community. As a reminder, the intermediate conversion and new modified attendance zone plan will take effect beginning in August of 2019. So as we move forward together, we will always be looking at the best options to serve the 11,150 students in our Forney family. Thank you for your support throughout this process. We are Forney family.
All right, so as you can see, we have quite a bit going on. And we're actually going to start, I'm going to invite Ms. Judy Weber, Chief Learning Officer, to come up and talk to us about our future expansions.
Board members, Mr. Ferris, you can see this says draft on it also, but we've got some plans and ideas here on how to handle the growth that those charts so beautifully represent. You can see here with our capacities at many of our schools at 700, we run into some problems at many of our campuses, 4 in particular, by next school year, and they start exceeding our capacity of what they can handle. So we have some areas that we know there's a lot of housing, there's a lot of growth, and if I kind of highlight those for you, we have the area around Lewis, of course Henderson, we've got quite a large zone there with Henderson. Crosby, there's still some development, it's a large zone, and then of course there's still some housing, plus the area all around Blackburn and the changeover in the new model. So those are some areas where the campuses cannot handle some of the capacity that they would be faced with in the near future. So when we look at building any single school, and I just picked one, let's say on the south side. So we plop a school in here, and I've got a little red schoolhouse there. You can see that it would take care of this kind of zone and pull some kids off of some of those districts, but it can't reach all those districts. Any one school can't reach all the districts, campuses, especially once we go to the north side. Well, let's say we added just a single school.
say here on the north side. And once again, it can relieve some of the schools, but can't address the large number of students at all 4 of those critical areas. So any single school doesn't seem to provide a solution for us. However, if we add on to each school, we can relieve the pressure points at all 4 campuses at once. So our goal here is to really address the high growth, and also at the same time, can we address some of the things that came out in 40 Focus 2.0? The areas of STEAM and STEM education, can we make a hub on those campuses, and can we increase the opportunities for our students in terms of educational programs that meet the needs of even our younger learners, all while being efficient with our taxpayer money. So if we look what we could do, we've got 4 campuses that are similar, and you can provide a similar footprint to add on some classroom space by providing another wing extension on. And so here's what it would look like at Blackburn. And it looks very similar at Crosby. And then once again at Henderson. And then Lewis, because of the way the building is shaped, and on the lot, it goes on the other side, but it's the same footprint, which also helps then with cost. So a really great plan to add some classroom space onto these campuses. And you can kind of see from the schematic here how the classrooms, it almost looks like it's always been that way, a nice little addition right there with some classroom space, with perhaps some areas we could expand into the library to increase that for some of our specials, and then adding a corridor to improve flow, and again, make a centralized hub for these campuses. So to build a new building is starting to approach $36 million for a 900-seat capacity, and that equals close to $40,000 per student for a new build to build one. And we knew that the one on either side doesn't relieve the issue. However, for an expansion that costs around $22 million and getting a capacity increase of 800 students, that again makes the space per child go to 28,000. So once again, we're providing a 30% savings and using our money really wisely and getting a savings per student.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Weber. We're actually going to move on into rezoning. We'll have a chance at the end for you to ask any questions you have. I'm going to call Dr. Rob O'Connor, our Director of Growth and Development, to the podium to talk to you through our current attendance modification plan.
Board members, administrators, I'll cover this quickly. As Judy discussed, the pressure points are really all across the district, which makes the rezoning attendance modification planning a little bit more challenging, because wherever you might shift students, they're also close to capacity. So finding the right balance is what we're all about, is trying to find the right balance out the campuses as far out as possible, and while being able to do some additions, maybe that might help us out. So ultimately, a lot of campuses are feeling pressure points, and we're trying to relieve the majority of that as long as possible. The rezoning goals, I think we discussed these with the school board. I know we discussed these with the school board earlier, but it's critical for us to optimize space with a fast growth district like we have 1,000 new students this year. Space is at a premium, so we need to make sure we rezone or do these attendance maps so that we can maximize the space. Dual language program coming over to Criswell is going to impact the Criswell numbers. We want to maintain as many natural lines as possible. And then, of course, we want to keep neighborhoods as close to campus proximity as possible. So we really want to keep our footprint small and try to impact as few families as possible while doing all of those things above. When we first looked at the projections and we first looked at possible attendance rezoning maps, this was Plan 1 that we presented to the school board at the last board workshop, and it was a good starting point. We started looking at these pressure points out here and pushing campus needs out to 24, 25, and as a district we like that. We like to push those pressure points out as far as possible, but there was one little outlier here, is Lewis. Lewis has been challenging because it's a very fast growth campus. I think this year they grew 29%. So everything we do is, not everything, but a big consideration in this process is what type of students are we zoning out to Lewis, to Criswell as a primary consideration. And I'll go through some of that here in a second. This was the initial Plan 1 map. I think we're going to recommend starting in a different, with a different map and a different rezoning plan. So this is just an initial look at what we looked at, trying to keep most of the current zones in place. Here's some of the challenges, though. What we ultimately came out with is going to Plan 4. And I say Plan 4 sounds like a lot. Literally, we've gone through 10 to 15 plans. I know 2 of the plans the board recommended last time we met at a board workshop, we kind of reviewed, all to end up with what we felt most comfortable, starting with a Plan 4. But literally, I had to thank Rocky for his time and effort. We've called Rocky every day, asking him to recalculate all sorts of different moves across the district, trying to figure out what's in the best interest of the district and how far we could push these pressure points down the road. So this was Plan 4 projections. With Plan 4, I'd just like to plan out that, Criswell capacity at 700 is really pushing the limit there. And so with Plan 4, we stay under that capacity for a couple years and alleviate some of that pressure. The other big pressure point I talked about earlier is Lewis, and Plan 4 also addresses Lewis's pressure points and pushes that out as far as possible. I'm going to go to the map here and talk about other potential challenges. Here's the map for Plan 4, and the potential challenges, as I've just discussed, some of the potential challenges is Lewis, obviously Lewis's enrollment. Criswell, handling the dual language program now, is going to have a smaller footprint. Crosby is already close to capacity. And so what you have here is the dynamics of a lot of growth on the north side that's all concentrated in this area. And for us to make the best rezoning attendance map possible, these are the areas that need to be addressed. And so Criswell having a small footprint is something that's obviously being considered in Plan 4. Also trying to remove some of the attendance at Lewis by shifting some of that population down south to Johnson without overloading Johnson. And then we've also considered shifting some population over to Crosby, but Crosby is pretty full to capacity. So any way you move this jigsaw puzzle around here, there's not a lot of room for negotiation as far as total enrollment goes with other campuses, but we're doing the best we can. And this is a starting point again. This is all, and I'll emphasize again, a draft. This is just where we're starting. For the month of November, we will be taking everybody's input all month long on this initial draft, if the board pleases, and then we will bring those recommendations back to the school board towards the end of the month. So again, this is just a starting point recommendation. Draft 4, I think, is what the administration feels most comfortable with, presenting initially out to the community. And as you'll see here, has a smaller footprint, has a very small footprint. I think I have a footprint plan. Here's the communities that are really impacted by Plan 4, and the neighborhoods that are impacted by Plan 4. 2 primarily, one neighborhood at Criswell going to Johnson, another neighborhood that's currently attached to Criswell going to Lewis, and this third neighborhood being attached to Henderson. So those, again, this is our critical mass area. This is where we have most of the pressure, trying to figure out how to alleviate all that enrollment. So I think we've done a good job, again, minimizing the number of neighborhoods that are being impacted by this initial consideration.
If you'll go back one, Dr. O'Connor, just real fast. If you go back to the secondary map, you'll also see that we made a few adjustments to give a clean boundary here. Now, that was one of the things we were looking at. This was a little more gerrymandered before, and so by bringing this line up, we now have, in effect, moved 80 a little further north and made a real clean natural break between the north side and the south side.
Right. No. Great point. This is now going to be the intermediate middle school and high school boundary, so they all have the same boundaries, and it'll look like that. So just to kind of recap, it's critical that we get this process going now. For the month of November, we're just going to be taking community input. In December, we're hoping to finalize a plan so that in January we can start making the logistical moves we need to make in order to have a smooth start to the 2019-20 school year. Hopefully, all goes as planned. What the plan is, we'll be waiting to hear from our community, our board members, and our administrators. So.
Thank you, Dr. O'Connor. We're going to kind of transition in now to the final piece, and that is the sort of the draft policy we're going to look at for transfers. We know with shifting that to Rain Smith and moving some kids to different feeder pattern, there are going to be some challenges there. And so I'm going to invite our Chief of Human Services, Mr. Rick Gear, to come and talk to you through about the transfer policy.
Dr. Terry and board members, appreciate the opportunity to share some thoughts with you about a proposed plan for our transfers for our new attendance modification. Obviously, we knew when Ray and Smith were being converted into intermediate campuses that there was going to have to be some adjustments in our transfer policies. Now that we see that there's a section that actually was north of 80, now will be heading south into that feeder pattern, so we had to make some adjustments. So a couple of proposed guidelines that in general, that all the current kindergarten not current, but next year's kindergarten and sixth grade students will follow the new attendance zone adoption beginning with next school year. So if it is approved, then they'll follow that guideline. Our current and 7th and through 12th grade students, as of this year, will remain in their current secondary feeder pattern. So there's no disruption in what their secondary path has been to this point. A couple of exceptions, obviously, with that script that is actually coming through Ridgecrest that becomes 740 over to 460 and south to 80, that is a little bit of a concern there. So we got a couple of provisions for those kids, and how we kind of identified that is a student who resides north of Highway 80 but who is zoned for a south side feeder pattern as of the 1920 school year. Now, there's two caveats here. So one of them is our current sixth graders at this year of the 18-19 will have a one-time option to choose their secondary path. So right now, if the new attendance zone is adopted, they would be going to Warren Middle School. And so they will have a one-time option to make a decision to whether to continue to Brown, which at this point they think they're going to Brown Middle School, but if we follow that plan, they would be going to Warren. So they'll have a one-time option to choose their secondary path. Also, as we started looking at this, of how the initial reaction was, what if, could a parent have a student at North Forney and then also at Forney High, a Falcon and a Jackrabbit in the same household? So if you look at it, our current fourth graders right now, by the time if they were to come south as a new south pattern, they could be a freshman at Forney High School, and there could be a sibling who was a senior at North Forney. So as we started looking at this, we thought about giving our current fourth and fifth graders that have siblings at Brown Middle School and or North Forney a one-time option to choose their secondary path, which means they would choose at that point their intermediate campus, which would lead them into their secondary path. So a couple other provisions, a change that we're recommending is that our current policy says that once you complete your 7th grade year, then no matter where you live within the city, within the attendance zones of Forney ISD, then you may maintain that same secondary path. What we're recommending, as I said earlier, is that we would move that to 9th grade year. So as it would read, it says, change of residence within the districts would like to stay in our current attendance zone for the remainder of his or her secondary career must have completed 1 full year at the current high school campus. But as I mentioned earlier, that we would put a provision in for those that are current 7th through 12th graders to remain in their current path right now. So we would look at the 8th grade year, then it wouldn't change anything for them at that point. The rest of the bullet points, which I think you believe you have a copy of, is our current policy right now, what we have in place. They're pretty generic, addressing our employees as well as anything that's a documented, whether it be a bullying or something medical that would require them the service that we couldn't provide at their home campus.
All right, well, we have thrown a lot at you, a lot of recommendations, and a lot of drafts for you to look at. At this time, we'll take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Morzak, and all your team that shared tonight. Do I have any questions from the board?
I do, Mr. Ferris.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Andrews.
Back on the info sessions that we're hosting on the 8th and the 12th, the two high schools, how are we getting that information out to the community to make sure that those are well attended and people can voice their concerns or questions?
I can let Kristen Zespel add anything to this, but it has been out on Facebook. We've pushed it out to the campuses, and they have been pushing it out as well. And we can do an internal push through School Messenger.
Is that video we saw already gone out?
That video goes out tonight. Yes, sir. At 9 p.m.
At 9 p.m.?
It's scheduled.
I just want to make sure that the community has every option
Absolutely.
to come in and say something so that we don't hear later on that
Absolutely.
we didn't know.
We agree with you 100%.
And then I got one other question. We're just talking about changing the elementary schools from a 700 capacity to a 900 capacity. And is 900 capacity elementary school, is that typical nowadays? Is that, we're not doing something that's out of line, right?
I think Vaughn could add to this. Well, actually, Judy and I have been doing quite a bit of research on 900 capacity elementary schools to go visit. Katy ISD, all of their campuses are over 1,000. I think a lot of the fast school districts are building larger capacities. Wiley ISD just built a campus for 1,000. Prosper ISD has a campus that size. So it is becoming more common because to keep up with growth.
So there's nothing out of the norm, then we're just kind of following along.
You need anything that one? Yeah, we have found plenty of schools we could go visit.
Okay, thank you.
900 doesn't stretch the core facilities too far.
No, we've done analysis on that and kind of talked to the principals. We may have to get a little creative here and there, but we're good at that. The cafeterias are built and can handle that. The gym can handle it. The library is potentially part of that addition. So.
Especially with that renovation and the cut throughs, make it even better for 700 and a lot better for 900.
Flow is an issue now, but fixing that flow does help. It's a good question.
Couple questions. Just to, we're looking to adopt this plan at the December meeting. That's the goal.
Dr. Terry, I think if you want to speak to that,
Sure, I'll be happy to. Mr. Carroll, our goal would be to adopt, and remember, we've got some conversion plans that we've got to continue with, and one of those is personnel. So one of the intent was, number one, to look at best practice. And so the calendar of events that you see in place, we're taken directly from school districts like Frisco and South Lake Carroll, and who do this on a annual basis, if that makes sense. But this also aligns to some of the personnel transfers and things like that we're going to have to work with and try and get them settled as fast as possible this spring as well.
Okay. The second question was, Mr. Gear, you talked about the options for the 4th and 5th graders that have siblings and the outright option for the 6th graders. Will we know that results and how it impacts that sheet prior to the night we're asked to adopt this, or will that be later information?
Are you referring to the numbers, the impact?
No, there's no way to know.
Obviously, we have those names, we have the numbers of those kids that this could impact in the decision, but I don't know if we can actually pin down the parents to make that decision at that point, if that's what you're asking. I think that would be difficult to do by December at that point, but we can give the potential of what it could look like if because right now they're all scheduled to come south.
Okay.
We can look at the potential, the maximum impact it could have, looking at those numbers if they all chose to go to the north side at that point.
So we can look at worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario, yes.
Okay, thank you.
and we have looked at worst case scenario just internally, roughly, to make sure that before we recommend anything to you, it would be optional. So.
And you said the graph we looked at today shows 100% of those kids going to the south side.
The Plan 4 shows 100% of those kids going to the south side.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And if you see, there's that pressure on Warren, it just kind of flip-flops that from Brown and flip-flops Ray and Smith. Yeah, it just flip-flops those.
Including this plan for the 9th, and that's got them all ones out.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Correct.
And that plan includes 4th, 5th, and 6th get to choose if their sibling would be in a different high school?
Any
I
sixth
thought it was
grader gets
just-
to choose.
oh, 6th grade.
Yes, ma'am. 4th and 5th if they have a sibling at Brown or North Forney.
That prevents, as I said earlier, that it prevents from households having a falcon and a jackrabbit.
It's 4th and 5th.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions?
Mr. Ferris, if you don't mind, just wanted to thank the board for their feedback from the last board meeting. As you can see, we've transitioned through a few plans already. Plans 2 and 3 were directly from your input, and 4 morphed out of that. And so we just encourage you, as well as our public, to continue to give input, and that's how we're going to create the best plan together as a community and school district. So thank you for the work that this team's already done, and you as a board as well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all your efforts, looking at all the angles and making family first and thinking of our students. So I guess at this time, we'll move on to item E, District of Innovation Report. Ms. Morzak?
So, thank you, Mr. Ferris. As you know, the board adopted a plan to become a District of Innovation December of 2016. At that time, we adopted a 5-year plan. It's set to expire in 2021. We told you at that time that every year we would come back and look at that plan and see if we wanted to move towards adopting any new items under that District of Innovation plan. We did convene on Tuesday, this past week, as a committee, and there are a couple areas we would like to explore potentially looking at to maybe re-adopt that plan. This is a biennium, and so if we move forward tomorrow night, actually, with our meeting and determine that there are a couple areas that we think we should move forward with, we would come back in probably January and ask the board to have a resolution to start that process again. It's the exact same process we had to follow the first time. If we do re-adopt that plan, at that point, we would adopt an entirely new plan that would expire 5 years after that. So just an update tonight, nothing to move forward on, just to let you know that we are looking at a couple areas that we would like to potentially bring to the board. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Move on then to item 8, the consent agenda. The board can take action these individually or collectively. Item 8A, approve minutes from October 1st, 2018. Item B, approve minutes from October 25th, board workshop. C, approve Eastfield College payment. D, approve the budget amendment. E, approve request for a maximum size class waiver exception. F, approve the renewal of site licenses with iStation. Do I have a motion?
Ferris, I move that we approve these collectively as presented.
Mr. Johnson, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Regan? I have a motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I hear none. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 9, consideration of the 2021 school calendar as a first reading. Presenter, Mrs. Kim Borzak.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. As you know, last year the board adopted a 2-year calendar, so we adopted this year's calendar and next year's calendar. The district committee came together to look at the calendar for the 2020-21 school year. We looked at the same parameters that we looked at in the past. We want to maximize instructional time. We want to protect teacher time prior to the school start with our diamond days. We want to give our teachers and our students a break after each quarter to recharge and kind of give their brains a little bit of white space. And we want to make sure we end prior to Memorial Day. You saw a draft in the board book. It does meet all those requirements. We gave DEIC a couple, just really one tweak because of the way the calendar laid out, and that was whether or not to make this a work day. An additional highlight I will show you is that the last day of school is the day before graduation, which is very nice. It hasn't really fallen that way for us in a while. And we can thank where New Year's falls this year for that little gift. It helps us out, being able to come back on that Monday. So it is almost identical to our current calendar. Because of the way things fall out, we do get that graduation prior to, last day of school prior to graduation, and there's also an opportunity for a 4-day weekend in February, and we don't have that on our current calendar. It's 170 school days, which is instructional days, which is what we have now, and all of that instructional time is completely maximized prior to the test with this setup. Any questions regarding the calendars of first reading?
Any questions? Have none. Okay. Ms. Tier, would you please move this to the consent agenda for adoption on December 3rd, please? We'll move on then to item 10, consideration and possible approval of the budget for upgrades and additions to the elementary campuses. Mr. John Chase, Chief Financial Officer.
As the board's aware, we had a budget workshop or a facilities workshop in October. Tonight, we've just had another presentation about these classroom additions to Blackburn, Henderson, Lewis, and Crosby to meet the challenges of our growth that's coming our way in the most economical manner that we can figure to do it at this point. That comes at a cost of $23 million. We've currently got $20.4 million of authorized but unissued bonds available. So that would mean that we would have about $2.6 million of general fund appropriation in order to meet those classroom additions. So the total, each addition is approximately 5.7 for a total of 23 million. So administration will recommend that the board approve the project budget, total project budget of $23 million to add classroom additions to Blackburn, Henderson, Lewis, and Crosby.
Thank you very much. Dr. Terry, what is your recommendation?
Mr. Ferris, we do believe this is a good option, a good efficient approach to continuing to target our growth, as well as maximizing the dollars we have available to us. And so I would recommend that we approve a budget of about $23 million for these 4 projects.
So I have a recommendation. Do I have a motion from the board?
So moved.
Mr. Andrews, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Johnson, any further questions?
Just a clarifying question. Does the $23 million budget include the 2 alternates, upgrading the library and the 2 additional classrooms?
Those are going to be alternates right now. We've actually got a little bit of wiggle room within that $23 million that we believe, based on what our bids come in and inflation numbers this spring, that we'll be able to access at a minimum the library alternate.
Okay.
The second alternate will be a question mark. We'd have to have pretty good bids.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any more questions? Okay, I've got a motion and a second. I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I hear none. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 11, consideration and possible approval of selection of construction manager agent as a delivery method for the upgrades and additions to the elementary campuses. Mr. Chase?
Yes, sir. So now that we have approved a project budget for this construction project, we do have some options on what we can use or how we can procure those construction services in order to get those classrooms built. One of those methods is, as you mentioned, the project delivery method of construction agent. That's the method that we've used in the past in this district. You have other options, but this one seems to work well for us. We've done the last several projects with this method in the district, and it would be our recommendation that we would continue using this method for this project as well.
Thank you very much. Dr. Terry, what is your recommendation?
Mr. Ferris, Gallagher's been a great partner and a great, for the past 15 years, and probably knows this district better than anybody, so we'd recommend that we continue using this method of construction manager agent as presented.
Thank you very much. I have a recommendation. Do I have a motion from the board?
So moved.
Mr. Carroll, do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Green, thank you very much. Any questions from the board? Hearing no questions, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I hear none. Moving on to item 12, consideration and possible approval of a contract with Gallagher Construction. Mr. Chase?
Now that we've selected our project delivery method of construction agent, as you know, Gallagher Construction Services has been our construction agent for the last several projects. We do think they're a highly qualified firm, and we would recommend continuing using them. We do have a contract amendment that you have, was in your board book for consideration, that would basically extend the contract that we had with them for the RHEA and Smith expansion projects. The approach we're looking at with this amendment would be to have this as a 5-year contract with them. This would cover any projects that we would undertake over the next 5 years. There is one, you've got, I think, placed beside you tonight. We did have one minor adjustment to the wording of the contract or amendment that we made before or after the packet went out. Just referencing the original contract to make sure it was clear what the terms were for the termination. It's under 5 bullet 3, but other than that, it's the same amendment, and we would recommend that we would approve that and move forward.
Thank you very much. Dr. Terry, do you have any additions to this recommendation?
Yes, Mr. Ferris, we are bringing to you 5-year contracts on both Gallagher and Huckabee tonight, and with the fast growth that we have in this district, we've got to be able to move very quickly and change directions very quickly, and to have the relationship built between the 3 entities is just vital. And so really excited about keeping this team together as we move forward over the next 5 years. So we would recommend Gallagher as our construction managers.
Okay, thank you very much. You've heard the recommendation. Do we have a motion?
Mr. First, I have a question. Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
I'm out of order.
We could go ahead.
The 5 years extension that we're setting up with Gallagher and with Huckabee on the next one, is that anything that we do automatically goes to them, or anything that we choose in that 5 years we can go through this amendment?
So the way the amendments will work is that the reference under the existing contract, we can terminate our relationship with either of these firms basically for any cause that we choose with a 7-day written notice. So as long as we're happy with using them, our intent is to continue to use them for the next 5 years for any project that the board identifies in the budget that you establish for those projects. That would govern how the fees would be set, because we have a schedule in here of what the fees will be. Should we choose to sever our relationship with them, all we have to do is give them a written notice in 7 days. It'll be over with.
Any other questions? You've heard the recommendations and discussions there. Do I have a motion on item 12?
So moved.
Go ahead.
So moved.
Ms. Green made a motion. I have a second.
Second.
Mr. Carroll made a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I hear none. Thank you very much. We're moving on to item 13, consideration and possible approval of architectural and engineering services contract. Ms. Morzak?
As Dr. Terry said, we have a lot of positive forward momentum going with our team of Gallagher and Huckabee. And so we would like to also extend the current contract with Huckabee 5 years to align with Gallagher's as we continue moving forward on these projects. So we would make a recommendation that we extend our contract for architectural and engineering services to Huckabee for the next 5 years.
Thank you very much. Dr. Terry, what is your recommendation?
I concur with Ms. Morsack. We'd recommend using Huckabee as our architectural and engineering firm.
May I have a motion?
Mr. Ferris, I make a motion we approve the architectural and engineering services contract as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Johnson? Any further questions? I hear none. I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I hear none. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 14, consideration and possible action regarding approving selection of real estate broker associated with broker agreement for purchase of real estate. Ms. Morzak?
As you know, and we shared with you earlier, we're growing very rapidly, and we have a lot of new additions being built. So we're always looking to work with those people to see if they'll give us any land sites, possible land sites for schools in their areas or any possible land as we continue to grow and expand. And as you know, we've had a great working relationship with Gallagher. They know our school district in the area very well. And they do have a brokerage and a real estate firm attached to Gallagher Construction. And so we are recommending the approval of using Gallagher Realty as our broker for land.
Thank you very much. Dr. Terry, do you have any comments or additions to this recommendation?
No, it's a great partnership. They know our district. They've been a part of the land acquisitions here for 15 to 20 years, and so they're very qualified in this area, licensed in this area, and we're just excited to continue to grow our partnership with Gallagher.
Thank you very much. You've heard the recommendations. Do I have a motion from the board?
Mr. Ferris, I make a motion to approve item 14 as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Regan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Any other questions from the board? I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I hear none. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 15, consideration and possible approval for the resolution of expressing official intent to reimburse costs of construction project and land acquisition. Mr. Chase.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. As you know, we've done this on this last intermediate school expansion. Basically, what the rules on reimbursing the district's general fund, if we choose to pay for, or if we have the upfront cost for construction or architect fees or the like, prior to the bond issue being settled and the funds being deposited into our bank account, in order to be able to reimburse ourselves for costs that we might be out of pocket before those funds get deposited into our account, we have to have this notice of resolution in place to allow us to do that. And so we'll come to you tonight with this resolution. Next month, I figure we'll probably, or soon thereafter, we'll have the actual parameter bond sale order for us to issue the remaining amount of bonds that we do have. But this resolution will be in place, so if we have any out-of-pocket costs that we incur prior to actually getting the funds, this will allow us to reimburse the general fund for it.
Thank you very much.
Our recommendation would be just to approve the resolution as presented.
Thank you for the explanation. Dr. Terry?
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. We're really blessed to have these authorized funds to access, first off, at no additional tax rate to our citizens. And this just gives us some flexibility to move at the pace we need to move, get our design programs in place before the sale. So we recommend that you would approve this resolution as presented.
Thank you very much. So you've heard the recommendation from administration. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Johnson? Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. I have a motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I hear none. Thank you very much. Moving on then to item 16. The next two items are related to items discussed during closed session earlier. Number 16, consideration and possible approval of professional contract personnel. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Ferris, I make a motion the board approve professional contract personnel as discussed in closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I hear none. Thank you very much. Moving on then to number 17, consideration and possible action regarding approval to authorize the superintendent to negotiate real estate contracts related to the purchase and donation of real estate property to Forney ISD. Do I have a motion?
Ferris, I move that we authorize the superintendent to negotiate real estate contracts related to purchase and/or donation of real property to the district, as discussed in closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Green. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I hear none. Moving on then to item 19. I believe we're done with all 18. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. 19 is announcements, future board meetings. Thursday, November 15th, special call board meeting. Monday, December 3rd, regular board meeting. Monday, January 14th, regular board meeting. And then backing up to November the 19th, Friday through the 23rd will be Thanksgiving break. And then your district-wide Christmas party will be on December 20th. And then Monday, December 24th through January 4th will be the Christmas break. So all that being said, at this time, I now call it 8:09 PM, and I now call this meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.
Like halftime. Good job.